So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we're going over the GCSE Maths past paper of November 2024 on the higher tier, paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now before we get started on this paper, a little reminder that I'll include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which topic each question relates to. So if you get stuck on a particular question, you can go back and revise that topic, and also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which gives you easy access to all the video lessons that go over all the topics in greater detail, along with topic tests, audits and other exam paper walkthroughs. So starting with question 1, it says choose a word from the list below to complete each sentence. So question 1a says the length of something is double the length of the radius, and the answer that you want to choose is the diameter. Then for question 1b, it says something is a region created by drawing a chord through a circle, and the answer you want to write there is a segment. Then for question 1c, it says a radius meets something at a right angle. Now I would say the most popular answer you should write is going to be a tangent, but they would accept a circumference or an arc as an answer for that 1 mark. Moving on to question 2, it says here is a grouped frequency table, and it says work out the estimate for the mean value. Now to work out the mean value from a group data, what we need to do is we need to multiply the frequency by the midpoint, and that will give us our fx values. So 16 times 5 is 80, 22 multiplied by 15 is 330, 13 times 25 is 325, and 9 times 35 is 315. Now adding all of those up gives us a total of 1050, and then to work out the estimated mean, I need to do the total of the fx, which is 1050, divided by the total frequency, which is 60, giving me an answer of 17.5, which seems a bit reasonable as the highest frequency group is the 10 to 20, so I'm expecting my mean to fall in that category, which my answer does. Now question 3 says in the grid below shade 1/4 of the squares so that the grid has exactly 2 lines of symmetry. So for this, 1/4 of the squares is going to be to shade 4 squares, and we want it so that there's only 2 lines of symmetry. Now there's several answers you can have for this particular question, in which any of the diagrams you can see on the screen now will be acceptable for those 2 marks. For question 4, it says a map has a scale of 1 to 4000. On a map, the distance from a station to a museum is 7 centimeters. And the question is asking us, is the actual distance from the station to the museum more than 300 meters? And we need to tick whether it's yes or no. So for this, if we look at the original scale, it's 1 to 4000. Now that is 1 centimeter equals 4000 in real life. So if we've got on our scale as measuring 7 centimeters, then what I need to do is multiply this 4000 by 7, and that's going to give me 28,000 centimeters. Now from this, what I then need to do is I need to then convert this into meters. So to do that, what I need to do is I need to divide by 100, and if I type in that into my calculator, I get an answer of 280 meters. So is it more than 300? The answer is no. Moving on to question 5, it says x is inversely proportional to y. Circle the correct statement. Well, if x is inversely proportional to y, then this is what we're actually looking for, in which the one that we need to then circle is going to be our top right hand option. Moving on to question 6, says here is a right angle triangle. It says use Pythagoras' theorem to show that x equals 0.8. So to show this using the Pythagoras theorem, we label our triangle first. So in this case, we're finding one of the shortest sides, so I'm going to call that a. Then quoting Pythagoras' theorem, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and doing a bit of rearranging, I get that a squared is equal to c squared minus b squared. So using this information here and substituting the numbers of b and c, then what I get is I get x squared equals 1.7 squared minus 1.5 squared. If I enter all of this onto my calculator, I get an answer of 0.64, and then if I just simply square root that number, I get my answer of 0.8, which is what they wanted me to show. Moving on to question 7, it says Beth and Lynn each spin the same bias coin a number of times. The table shows information about the results, and the question is asking us how many more heads did Beth spin than Lynn. So for this, what I need to do is to first of all work out how many heads did Beth and Lynn have. So here what we're looking for is it's going to be the number of trials multiplied by the probability. So for Beth, it's going to be 125 multiplied by 0.32, which gives me on my calculator an answer of 40. And if I do the same for Lynn, then it's going to be 80 multiplied by 0.35, and that gives me an answer of 28. Then all that's left me to then do is to work out the difference, which is 40 minus 28, which gives me an answer of 12. Now moving on to question 7b, it says Lynn says my estimate of the probability of the coin landing on a head must be the best because 0.35 is greater than 0.32. Is she correct? Well, technically no, she is not, because when it comes to relative frequency, the more number of trials you have, the more accurate the probability, and that's exactly what you need to write. So you just need to write the more trials you have, the more accurate the probability. And once you've written that, don't forget to tick the right box. So let's have a look at question 8. So question 8 says some oil has a mass of 537 grams and a density of 895,000 grams per cubic meter. If 1 cubic meter equals 1,000 litres, work out the volume of the oil, giving our answer in litres. So for this, what we need to establish is that density equals mass over volume, and that the volume is going to equal mass over density. Now, to do this, what we need to do is we need to convert the density into grams per litre. So to do that, if we recognise that 895,000 grams is 1 cubic metre, then if we replace the 1 cubic metre with 1,000 litres, then what we get is our density in relation to grams per litre. So that's going to equal 895 grams per litre. Now, using this as our density value and our mass as being 537, then the volume is going to be 537 divided by 895, which, if I type that into my calculator, gives me an answer of 0.6, and that's in litres. On to question 9, it says the length of a wall is 9 meters to the nearest meter. Complete the error interval for the length of the wall. Well, if it's 9 meters to the nearest meter, then what I need to do is just half a meter and add and subtract that from 9. So 9 take away 0.5 is 8.5, and 9 plus 0.5 is 9.5. Then moving on to question 10, it says 384,000 electric cars are sold each this year. This is 20% more than last year. How much was sold last year? So for this, we need to use reverse percentages. So if I'm looking at increasing a percentage by 20%, then my decimal multiplier is going to be multiplying by 1.2. Now, because we want to go in the opposite direction, I want to know what the original price was. What we need to do is do the opposite of that, which is divide. So again, to go from old to new, we multiply by the decimal multiplier. So to go from new to old, I divide by the decimal multiplier. So this is going to be 384,000 divided by 1.2, which if I type into my calculator gives me an answer of 320,000. Moving on to question 11, it says here are three terms. Alec multiplies two of these terms. Work out the three possible fully simplified answers. So if I first of all if I just label these 1, 2, 3. So my first expression is going to be xy multiplied by x squared, and that's going to give me a simplified answer of x cubed y. Then my second one is going to be xy multiplied by 5y squared. So here I'm going to end up with 1x and 3y's. And then the third possible option is then doing x squared multiplied by 5y squared, which gives me an answer of 5x squared y squared. And these are my three options that I then need to write in my answer space. For question 12, it says that at a music festival, 4 types of instruments are played: guitars, keyboard, drums and trumpets. The total of the number of instruments is 80. Half of the instruments are guitars. Keyboard, drums to trumpets is in the ratio of 3 to 4 to 1. And the question is asking us, how many keyboards are there? Well, looking at this, the first thing I need to do, well, if there's 80 together, half of that are going to be 40. So there are 40 guitars, leaving that there are 40 instruments left. Now next what I need to do is I need to share 40 in the ratio of 3 to 4 to 1, which is giving me a total of 8 parts. So it's going to be 40 divided by 8 equals 5. So each of these, to work out the total, I just need to multiply each of these numbers by 5. Now in the question it's only asking for how many of those are keyboards, so the ratio part that's connected to keyboards is the very first one. So I'm only interested in 3 parts, so 3 parts is going to be 3 times 5, giving me an answer of 15. Now moving on to question 13, it says 2 right-angled triangles are joined to make a large triangle, and the question is asking us to work out the angle of x. So in order for us to work out x, I need to work out what the height of this triangle is. So if I just start by calling the height y, then I take that triangle out and just labeling what I know, and this being y, I need to use trigonometry to work out what y is first. So labeling my triangle, I get this is a, this is o, and this as theta. So which trig ratio uses o and a? That's going to be tan. So I've got tan 38 equals y over 15. So y is going to equal 15 times tan 38, which if I type into my calculator gives me an answer of 11.7 192844. Now once I know that value, if I take out this triangle here which involves x, I now know what 2 sides are. I know that this is 14, this is 11.719, blah blah blah. And so labeling the triangle, this is h, this is o, and what I then need to do is which trig ratio uses o and h? Well, that's going to be sine. So I've got sine x equals 11.719 over 14. Now in order to find out the angle, I need to use the inverse of sine. So if I do the inverse sine of 11.719 over 14. Now if you've still got the 11.719 still on your calculator, I would use that value. So you just do inverse sine and the fraction of your ands over 14. That gives me an answer of x equals 56.8, and that's to 1 decimal place. Now if you have rounded it, always make sure that you've stated what you've rounded it to. So whether it be 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, significant figures, nearest whole number. It doesn't mention anything of that in the question, so you can choose, or you can just simply write the answer that's on your calculator. Now moving on to question 14, it says here is a sign in a shop. There's a sale and there's a 20% off all items, and today only they get 10% off the reduced price. That means you save 30%. Is this sign correct? Well, there's a couple of ways in which you can prove this is true. That if you're doing a 20% off, then you are going to be multiplying by 0.8. Then if you're taking off another 10%, then what you're going to be doing is multiplying that by 0.9. And what the question's saying is that you should be left with 70%. Well, if I do 0.8 multiplied by 0.9, so 0.8 multiplied by 0.9, that gives me an answer of 0.72. So therefore it's a 72% is left, not 70%. So therefore this is not true. Now another way of doing this is if you imagine that you're buying an item that is, let's say, £100, that if you take off 20%, you're going to be left with £80. And then if I'm taking 10% off, so minus 20%, which is £20, then if I take off another 10%, then that is going to be £8 off, which is going to give me an answer of £72. Now 30% off 100 is going to give you £70, and as you can see, these two amounts here are different, so therefore the answer is going to be no. So multiple ways in which you can express that this answer is, or this little offer is incorrect, or the statement I should say is incorrect. Moving on to question 15, it says AB and CD are straight lines and parallel lines. Point P is on the point of AB and Q is a point on CD, where AP is equal to AQ. And the question is asking us to find the value of X. So for this, what we need to establish is that I can see I've got an isosceles triangle, and if the line AB is parallel to AD, then this angle here and this angle here are going to be the same because they are alternate. So that's going to be 5x plus 6, and if I just write alternate. Now because the triangle APQ is a isosceles triangle, an anisosceles triangle, then this angle here is also going to be 5x plus 6. And that's because it's an isosceles triangle. Now angles on a triangle add up to 360, so if I add up all of these three angles, it should add up to give me 180. So what I've got is I've got 2x plus 5x plus 6 plus 5x plus 6 should equal 180. Now if I do a bit of collecting like terms, I get 12x plus 12 equals 180, and then all I want to do is then solve this equation. So if I take away 12, I end up with 12x equals 168, and then if I divide by 12, that's going to give me an answer of 168 divided by 12, which gives me an answer of 14. Moving on to question 16, it says to solve this equation here, and from what it looks like quadratic. So first thing I want to do is expand these brackets. So if I expand those brackets out, I get x squared, and it's going to be plus minus 5x plus 2x minus 10 equals 6x. Now if I simplify all of this, I get x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 6x. And then to solve a quadratic, you always want to make sure it's equal to 0. So if I take the 6x over to the side, I end up with x squared minus 9x minus 10 equals 0. Now from this, what I then want to do is to factorize this. So I get x minus 10 and x plus 1 equals 0. So therefore x minus 10 equals 0, or x plus 1 equals 0. For this to equal 0, x must equal 10, and for this to equal 0, x must equal minus 1. So there are my two solutions to this particular quadratic. Moving on to question 17, it says that the lines LM as an equation of y equals 4x minus 7 and a straight line ST has an equation of y equals 9 minus x over 4. And the question is asking, are the lines LM and ST perpendicular? So if they are perpendicular, then the gradient of LM multiplied by the gradient of ST should equal minus 1. So what I need to do is I need to work out the gradients by looking at the equations, what the gradients are of those two lines. So if I look at the gradient of LM, then the gradient is the coefficient of x, which is the number in front of x, which is 4. Then doing a bit of rearranging with the gradient of ST, I get y equals 9 over x over 4, and rewriting that is 9 over 4 minus x over 4. Now if I stick a 1 there, then what I recognize is that the gradient of LM is going to be minus a quarter. So as 4 times minus a quarter equals minus 1, then the lines are perpendicular. And so the box I need to tick is going to be yes. Moving on to question 18, it says two types of batteries P and Q are tested. 100 of each type were put into clocks and the number of days each battery lasted was recorded. And we've got a frequency table that represents the results of type P. And the question is asking us to, on the grid, draw a cumulative frequency diagram to represent the data. So using the table, what I need to do first is create my cumulative frequency values. And what I need to do is ask myself how many batteries lasted less than 40 days. And that's going to be 2. How many batteries lasted 80 days is going to be 9 plus 2, which is 11. How many batteries lasted less than 120? That's going to be 26 plus 11, which is 37. How many batteries lasted less than 160? Well, that's going to be 45 plus 37, which gives me an answer of 82. And then how many batteries lasted less than 200? Well, that's going to be pretty much all of them, which is 100. Then what I then need to do is to plot this on the cumulative frequency, is to start at 0, and what I need to do is I need to plot a point at these coordinates. So starting at 0, and let's just zoom out from this here, and so looking at my first one, I'm starting at 0. The first one, the upper bound of the first group is 40, and that was 2, so that's going to be after the first little block. Then the next group, upper bound is 80, and that has 11, so that's going to be round about there. Now, obviously, if you can't hit the exact point, just go for as close as possible. The next one is 120, and that goes up to 37, so that's going to be about there. The next one is 160, and that's at 82, and that's going to be there. And the last one is 200, which is at 100. Then what I need to do, because I want a cumulative frequency diagram, I need to join those points up with a nice smooth curve, and should end up with something that looks like this. Then for question 18b, it says for type Q, the median was 126 and the interquartile range was 57. Compare the number of days that types P and Q lasted. Make one statement about the average and one statement about the spread. Use statistical measures to support your statements. So what I need to do is go back to my cumulative frequency diagram, and I need to work out the median and the interquartile range for the type B battery. So the median is going to be the total divided by 2, which is 50. So what I need to do is I need to draw a line at 50 using a ruler, and then till it hits that point, and then as soon as it hits the line I then project downwards, and I reckon that that is going to be around about, I would say, 132. So the median, so in terms of type P, that the median is going to be around approximately 132. And then from this, what I then need to do is work out the interquartile range. So 100 divided by 4 is 25, and 3 times 100 divided by 4 is 75. So what I need to do is find 75, and then that value there is going to be my upper quartile. So I make that out to be around about 156. So the upper quartile I make it to be around about 156, and the lower quartile, which is going to be at 25, which I make out to be around about 104. Now, as long as you're marking this on your curve and you're using your values, then that should be absolutely fine. So from this, what I then get is an interquartile range of 156 minus 104, which gives me an answer of, that should be a 6, of 52. So an IQR of 52. So what I need to do is I need to compare these two numbers with the median and IQR of type Q. So if I just write type P, then the median I worked out was 132, and the IQR was 52. So comparing the medians, I'm comparing 126 days to 132 days. So obviously with the battery, you're wanting one that lasts the longest. So what you then need to write is, on average, type P lasted longer, and you can then just say as it had a bigger median. You can quote the numbers if you wish, but the key words you want to say here is, on average, type P lasted longer because it had a bigger median. And then in terms of the spread, you then want to talk about consistency. So what you then want to say is that type P were more consistent in time as it had a smaller IQR. And again, the key word you want to include is that type P were more consistent because it had a smaller IQR. So moving on to question 19, it says a phone screen is similar to a tablet screen. The area of the tablet screen is 420 square centimeters, and the screen costs £7,000 per square meter. Work out the cost of the phone. Now, as the dimensions of the phone and the tablet are both in centimeters, then what we need to do first is to convert £7,000 per square meter into pounds and square centimeters. Now, to do that, what we want to do is, if we look at a square meter, so that's 1 meter by 1 meter. Now, if we want the units to be in centimeters, then what I need to do is convert those meters into centimeters. So 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters, and this would also be 100 centimeters. Now, looking at this line here, I've got £7,000 per 1 square meter, and that's going to equal £7,000 divided by 100 times 100 centimeters squared. Now, working that out and doing 7,000 divided by 100 times 100 gives me an answer of 0.70, which is the price per a square centimeter. Now, once I've got the new price per square centimeter, I then need to go about working out what the area of the phone screen is in centimeters. Now, here, if the length scale factor, as they're both similar, if the length scale factor is K, let's say, then the area scale factor is going to be K squared. So if the length scale factor is 15/6, which is 2.5, then the area scale factor is going to be 2.5 squared, which equals 6.25. Then to work out the area of the screen for the phone, so the area of the phone screen is going to be 420 divided by the area scale factor, which is 6.25, and that gives me an answer of 420 divided by 6.25 of 67.2, and that's in square centimeters. So next, all that's for me to then do is work out the cost per square centimeter. So then the cost is going to be 67.2 multiplied by 0.7, and typing that into my calculator gives me an answer of £47.04. Moving on to question 20, it says here is a formula for an iterative process, and the question is asking us to work out what U1 is and U3 is. So to do this, what we're going to do is I'm going to work out what U2 is equal to 24 over U1 plus 4. So then if I know what U2 is, which is 8, then it's going to be 8 equals 24 over x plus 4. So if I take the 4 over, I get 4 equals 24 over x. And so x equals 24 divided by 4, which equals 6. So U1 equals 6. Then to work out U3, well, U3 is equal to 24 over U2 plus 4. And if U2 is 8, that's going to be 24 over 8 plus 4. 24 divided by 8 is 3, so that's going to be 3 plus 4. So U3 equals 7. Moving on to question 21, it says the graph represents the velocity of a ball as it rolls along the ground. And for question 21a, it says work out an estimate for the acceleration of the ball in meters per second squared after 2 seconds. You must show you're working out. Now for this question, what you need to do is you first of all need to find 2, which is here. And what you need to do is 1, draw a tangent at 2. So let's just say and have a line that balances over there. And what you then need to do is work out the gradient of that particular line that you have drawn. So to work out the gradient, it's the distance up divided by the distance across. So if you count the number of squares, then any answer between 1.5 to 2.5 would be fine to get the marks for the acceleration, because acceleration is the gradient of a velocity time graph. So if I just write that down, so acceleration equals the gradient of the tangent at 2. Then for question 21b, it says work out the estimate of the total distance covered by the ball. Now the total distance in a velocity time graph is basically the area under the curve. So what I need to do is I need to work out the area of everything under this line here. So if I just get rid of this just for part B, then if I split this graph up into 3 sections, then what I've got, and let's just draw a line from here to there. So if I call this area A, this area B, and this area C, then area A, which is a triangle, is going to be 4 times 8 divided by 2, which gives me an area of, that's going to be 16. And then if I work out area B, which is a rectangle, and it's got a base of 6 and a height of 8, so that's going to be 48. And if I work out the area of C, which is a triangle with a base of 6, a height of 8, divided by 2 gives me an area of 24. So the total distance is going to be equal to 16 plus 48 plus 24, giving me an answer of 88. So it's going to be 88 and it's going to be meters. Moving on to question 21C, it says, is your estimate for part B an overestimate or an underestimate? And what we need to take here is an underestimate. And the reason is because for area A, we have used an underestimate. So we've actually used an area that is smaller in that first section. So what you can say is we have used a smaller area between t equals 0 and t equals 4. Then for question 22, it says the nth term of a sequence is n squared minus 30n plus 236. By completing the square, show all terms of the sequence has 2 digits or more. So for this, what we need to do is use completing the square to factorize this first. So we've got n minus, and if I divide the coefficient of n by 2, I get 15. And then I've got plus 236. And what I need to do is I need to subtract whatever numbers inside the bracket squared. And so that's going to give me an answer of n minus 15 squared plus 236 minus 225. Now if I work this out, what I get is I'm going to get n minus 15 squared plus 11. Now when for all values of n, that the answer is always going to be a number that is bigger or equal to 11. And so therefore, so as 11 is a 2-digit number, then all digits will have at least 2 digits, because the smallest number that it could be is going to be 11. Now moving on to question 23b, it says here is a cyclic quadrilateral. The ratio of f to g is in the ratio 2 to 3, and the question is asking us to work out the ratio of f to h, giving our answer in its simplest form. So for this particular question, what I need to do basically is work out what all these angles are. So one of the key properties of a cyclic quadrilateral is that opposite angles add up to 180. So g plus 63 is going to add up to 180. So I can work out what g is, and that's going to be 180 minus 63, which is 117. So that's what g is going to be. Now, in terms of this, what I know that if g equals 3 parts, then one part is going to equal 117 divided by 3, and that gives me an answer of 39 degrees. So therefore, if f equals 2 parts, then f is going to be 2 times 39, which gives me an answer of 78 degrees. So this angle here is 78. So then to work out h, I just need to do 180, take away 78, which gives me 102 degrees. So now that I've got what h is, I've worked out what f is. So the ratio of f to h is going to be 78 to 102. And if I simplify that ratio, I get an answer of 13 to 17. So now let's have a look at our last question. So it says, in the diagram, A, B, C, D and A, E, F, G are congruent rectangles. D lies on EF and angle ADE is equal to X, and we want to prove that GD bisects the angle BDF. So looking at this, if the two rectangles are congruent, and in a rectangle we have two sets of parallel lines, so then this angle here is going to also equal X. Now from this, what we then establish is that this line AD is going to equal AG because they're both the lengths of a rectangle, and they're both congruent, so they're going to be equal, which therefore means that the triangle AGD is going to be an isosceles triangle. So to work out what this angle here is going to be, what I then need to do is do 180 minus x divided by 2. And again, if I just take that triangle out of AGD, that if these two lengths here, if that there is x, then to work out what this angle here is, I do 180 minus x, which will give me the sum of these two angles here, and I divide it by 2 because I want to know what one of the angles are. Now if I simplify that, I get 90 minus a half x. So let me just put a little box around that. And then what I can then do is I can then work out what angle this is. Because A to F is a straight line, then this angle here of ADF is going to be 180 minus x. Now if I divide that by 2, so as ADF divided by 2 equals 90 minus a half x, which also equals the angle of ADG, then BD bisects the angle ADF. And there is my answer for that one and the end of this paper.